Great, Anna. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to move over to a short video, and then we're going to have a panel with Mari on exactly this issue. But let's start with the video. And a round of applause for Anna again. Thank you.
Jag kommer från Sverige. Youth is the future of our whole world. It is obvious we need to be a part of the decision making. You do not have the right to determine our future without us. We want to live in rural areas, but you need to understand our needs and our requirements for doing so.
Ég heiti Margrét Lára og ég kem frá Íslandi. We need policymakers and diverse actors to see rural areas, contribute to their development for housing, education and job opportunities, and most importantly, listen to the needs of the younger generations.
One improvement I need to see for Nordic rural youth is access to education in their own languages. Being able to get an education in your first language is a basic right and not a privilege.
My name is Alexandra Mazurik. I'm from Belgium, but I've been living in Finland for 2 years now. There is not enough housing, and almost all of the housing has been used for hotels instead of for the youth or for people who just want to integrate and get a job.
Ég heiti Bára og ég frá Íslandi. If the conditions in rural regions are not suitable for youth, the youth will move away. If young people don't see a reason to move back or stay, rural societies can't regenerate and will stagnate and die off.
My name is Agnes and I come from Denmark. As I see it, one of the biggest problems in the rural areas is obtaining qualified labor. This will lead to a gap between city and countryside, which will in the end lead to different opportunities depending on where you grew up.
Hello, my name is Lucas. I've lived in Greenland for 17 years. I've had difficulties with the educational system, and I can definitely see an improvement in the educational system with both helping and testing for learning disabilities like dyslexia.
Hej, mitt namn är Annie och jag kommer från Sverige. I think it's important to have affordable housing, but also service hubs to create co-working spaces. It's not enough to listen to rural youth. They need to be inside the decision-making spaces.
Anton Suomesta täällä. I would like to see a situation in which it would be as accessible to educate yourself as well as work in the profession that you want to work in, also from rural areas.
Góðan dag, ég heiti Selma. Remote and hybrid work opportunities are ideal to incorporate young rural youth in the labor market. I work as a translator for the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Iceland. Although the ministry itself is located in Reykjavik, I work in a field office in Akureyri. This solution makes it possible for me to have the social benefits of having a set workplace while also finding a work that suits my education in a rural area.
My name is Jekvam, and I'm from the Faroe Islands. During my upbringing in Sandoy, our only way off the island was by boat. In December, a underwater tunnel will open up, connecting Sandoy to the mainland of the Faroe Islands. Unfortunately, this is not the case in many rural areas. So having a good infrastructure is crucial for having people living and thriving.
My name is Jonas, and I'm from Finland. And I think younger generations need affordable housing with job opportunities that would match their desired education and to feel a sense of community with the rural area that they might habit in the future.
Jag heter Sofia och kommer från en liten by I Sverige som heter Holsjunga. In the future, I wish that young people don't see it as a failure if they choose life in a rural area. There you can achieve all your dreams if you see the possibilities. But you guys, you need to listen and work for us to being able to have a great life in a rural area.
My name is Ingebjörg and I'm from Norway. It's important for policymakers to listen to and address youth because it's when we work together that we get the best solutions.
Jag heter Jakob Jakstå och jag kommer ur Färjön. The price of living in rural areas is unsustainably high. Urban centers can justify their price of living by the available services that they have to offer. I think it's crucial for the benefit of rural areas that their price of living represents what they actually have to offer.
My name is Mats Sarstad and I'm from Kristiansund in Norway. The most important issue for me is that every municipality needs to have a functioning youth council. Youth councils need to be included in policymaking and have the right to meet and be heard in municipality councils.
Jag heter Cecilia och jag kommer från Finland. The youth are our future and our now. We are the policymakers, our teachers, our front workers. So it's important to start listening to us, start taking our ideas in consideration, and start implementing our ideas. Remember, there is no rural area without the youth.
My name is Karina. I'm originally from the US, but I chose to move to the West Fjords of Iceland. Policy-driven improvements in areas like affordable housing, job opportunities, and access to education are necessary for young people to stay in or move to rural areas and for rural areas to thrive.
Yes, I think we can go in.
I think it's that way.
Well, hello again. You're stuck with my nasal voice for another 45 minutes or so. Wasn't that inspiring? I mean, what an incredible bunch of people we've been working with. These were our Gen Z panelists, and we met with them quite a few times throughout the last year, and obviously they are brimming with good ideas, and yeah, we're just excited to be able to share this with you guys today. But for now, many rural municipalities, as we've heard, are struggling with a mass exodus of young people, and they're leaving for the cities. So how can we make rural areas compete with their urban counterparts? Or should we perhaps just bury our heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening? What do young people need then in terms of attractive labor markets, education opportunities, and access to services? Is the allure and promise of recreational activities close to nature enough? Or is the cafe culture lacking? When the cafe culture is lacking and the nearest or the fastest connection to a city is by a train that takes 1 hour and 20 minutes, covering the mighty distance of 77 kilometers. And I'm not speaking for a friend. I am going to invite on stage our panelists for today, and I'm going to let them help shed some light on these issues. So we have 6 of them, and I think they should perhaps make their way onto stage. Yes, come on. Don't be shy. Yes. Yes, squeeze together. We are all in a Nordic family here today. Anyway, we have with us Ann-Sofie Bakre. You've been actively involved in politics since a very early age, as far as I understand, and has been doing quite a lot of work on rural development in Ostrobothnia in Finland. And you're also now the network coordinator at Finnish Rural Networks. Welcome. We also have Lilja Rannei Sigurgeirsdottir here. You've been in the political game as well since you were about 15 years old. And is that today the youngest member of Althingi for the party Framsókn? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have a sheep farm. Yeah. That's pretty cool, I think. And we also have Hans-Peter Karlsson. You are the Secretary General of Midt-Skandia, which is the cross-border committee covering Helgeland in Norway and Västerbotten in Sweden, excuse me. You're seasoned, apparently, rather than young and promising.
Right.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Welcome to you all. We also have some Gen Z panelists with us today. Anne Linsemark in the middle here. We saw you on the video earlier. You're a communications professional who works with the community-led local development for Region Halland in Sweden. And you describe your passion for rural development as originating from in your formative years when you resided in rural areas and engaged in local community activities there. And you've also been working on several topics since. Welcome. And we have Bara here to my side. Bara Örk-Milsted, you're another one of our Gen Z panelists, also recognizable from the video. And you now serve on the board for Icelandic Young Environmentalists Association, but you've also been involved in Regeneration 2030, You've been a youth delegate to Iceland, Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe, and that was last year. And finally, Mats Harstad. You're interested in everything from electronics to astrophysics and youth engagement in politics. Quite a bit. That's quite a big, yeah. You're the leader of Kristiansund's Youth Council, and you're also a member of the Regional Youth Council. And you work part-time in a youth club, and you see on a weekly basis how much a place like that means to youth in your city. Welcome to you all. Big round of applause, I think. I mean, you guys are all so busy and inspiring, I think. I mean, you really just want to go out there and get engaged and get involved in politics again when you hear what you have to say. But Mats, in the video that we just watched, there were so many fantastic points when it comes to youth inclusion and participation. And you spoke about the well-functioning like youth councils and how important that is. So in your experience, do you feel listened to by local and regional decision makers?
Well, we always get a lot of great feedback, and I think I've never heard anyone be like mad that we have the right to meet and talk in the city council. So everything we've done, we've always gotten great feedback, both from the administration and from policymakers as well. So I feel that they hear our voices, although they might not always follow through on that.
I suppose that's right. But it sounds like there's some learnings that we can take from that. And hopefully we'll all be a bit wiser at the end of the day in terms of how to take these good ideas home and implement them. But now, I think we want to hear a bit more about these panelists and what they think about everything. So Annie, in your opinion, what do young people need in terms of an attractive labour market, education opportunities and access to services to stay in Nordic rural areas?
I think that affordable housing should be one of the main attractions. And unfortunately, the reality is really different because housing is expensive and doesn't meet our necessary requirements. Because housing is more than just a roof over one's head. It should be a part of a larger vision of creating a more interconnected and vibrant communities. And here are some concrete recommendations. First, do not let the role of youth in this. They can't enter the housing market. And this involves settling a fund or project for young people who want to buy and build new homes. And second, modernize share housing models, both for renting but also for buying. And third, collaboration. Involve universities, other education and rural companies. So we recognize the connection between the local labor market and housing development.
Thank you so much, that's really good. What do you think, Bara?
Well, I think that community cohesion is one of the main attractions of living in rural regions. But I think there are a lot of challenges that we face in modern day. Decreasing population, housing crisis, climate crisis, cost of living crisis, and we are recovering from a global pandemic. So I think all of these pose a threat to the vital cohesion and unity and can create divide and discord within those communities. It is a fact that rural regions are vulnerable and some of them are struggling to exist. And when an entire generation is missing from a community, that community is always going to suffer. And if we don't have plans for reversing that pattern, it is hard to imagine any future there at all. It is simply a question of whether we want to see rural regions survive or not. One of the most prominent features that I see when imagining the future of rural regions is the centralization. We have seen centralization of basic services in the last decades, I presume, from rural regions into bigger towns. This is something that we have to come to terms with, because decentralization of all these services is unrealistic. But we need to find balance between the two, and we need to make it work for rural inhabitants. And that, I think, we do by providing appropriate, proper mobility to basic services, whether they are near or far, and ensure
equal opportunities for all.
Absolutely, and centralization is something we've spoken about earlier today as well, and cohesion is definitely very important. And Mats, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, like youth engagement and involvement in local politics is kind of what's closest to my heart, and I believe that involvement in local policymaking and engagement in local politics in general is one of the best ways for young people to grow a sense of connection to their hometown and a sense of ownership, pride, and identity. And including and listening to young voices through student councils and youth councils gives them legitimacy, which in turn increases engagement even more. And I think this is a really positive feedback loop that strengthens democracy as well as the connection to the rural area. And like in my case, I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for me signing up for student council and winning by rock, paper, scissors in 10th grade. So like the engagement can really just, like I said, create a feedback loop and increase the engagement. And it is also no secret that one of the main areas that youth in general are interested is in education, as it is one of the main parts that have a direct impact on our daily lives. And education is always the one thing mentioned when it comes to addressing future challenges as well, whether it be challenging demographic composition or climate challenges or sustainability. Forward-looking education is always mentioned as a part of the solution. And if there's one thing that youth want to be, it's a part of the solution. So education is absolutely crucial to society as well as for local and regional municipalities as well as for individuals. So I think having great institutions for education is really important.
Thank you so much. And I think we should also maybe start including you guys in this. What thoughts and perspectives on youth participation and the young people in general in Nordic rural areas do you have? Lilia, do you want to get going?
So there are a lot of things that we can do to, because we need to have sustainable communities, and so the young people that grow up in the areas, they want to live there. We need to make sure that they want to stay there. We also need to make sure that new young people want to come to the areas. So we have been doing quite a lot in policy making, trying to figure out which ways are best to do this. For example, we have been trying to focus quite a lot on distance learning up until university, especially in university, and also regarding distant office jobs, because our government has a lot of jobs that we can do wherever, which means that we need to have educated people in rural areas that can work these distance jobs. And if they need to move quite far away to educate themselves for these jobs, they are more likely to stay in the city area if they need to move here. So we have been focusing quite a lot on making, having job security and education security all around the country. So that's one of the aspects that we have been focusing on.
And is it working?
Yeah, it is. Well, in some places, I think. But I think we need to do a lot more in this, because we are also seeing that people maybe get distance jobs, and they move away with the jobs, too. Because they, of course, everyone can move wherever they want to. But so this can also work in different direction. You can get maybe a few quite big jobs and in the small rural areas, and then maybe half of the staff members move away. So suddenly you get a decrease in the office jobs in the area. So we have been trying to find a lot of solutions, and we have houses all around the country where people in different jobs, maybe in different types of companies, can all work together. So maybe one from this company, one from this company, so they are making a community within the town or in the area. But it's also, everyone of course should have a chance to do what they want. So for example, regarding college, we have most of the colleges here in Reykjavik, or in this area, which means that around 16 years old, a lot of kids need to move here. And we have a housing crisis here in the city. And it's really hard to try to get a renting apartment for a 16-year-old. So we need to have a dormitory here, which we do not have, but it's on the plan to get a dormitory here. So kids can move here and educate themselves and hopefully move back. So we're trying to focus on getting everyone and having sustainable communities everywhere.
Absolutely. And Hans-Petter, how is that for you?
Well, I have experience sending my kids off to school when they were 16. They went 400 kilometers away to a city where there is a university, where there is everything you could wish for as a 16-year-old, and they never came back. The place where I live is 450 people, and I think that if we can mix together and try all the suggestions we've had today, both in this panel and that we heard before, I think we'll be well off. But I think that solutions, they cannot be one size fits all. Where I live, the problem is not that housing is too expensive. It's rather the opposite. It's too cheap. Because when you inherit your parents' house, you keep it because it doesn't cost you anything. And then it's empty for decades. And that is the other side of the centralization problem, actually. So I think not one size fits all, and we need to try all these things. Because as Mats said, there is a very good Norwegian formula for youth participation with the youth councils and the youth parliaments run by the municipalities and the fylkes. But to have voice but no vote might be frustrating. Then imagine having no voice and no vote, as most young people are experiencing in the Nordics today. So I think listening more and actually acting on it, because the solutions are here.
Well, that's some great food for thought, I think. Are you experiencing the same stuff in Österbotten?
Yes. I'm living myself in a smaller village also. It's 560 inhabitants in wintertime, much more in summertime because it's a coastal villages. But I should say first that I think we have to market rural areas with new approaches. And I usually say that nowadays we all just live around the corner. If you have internet, broadband, fiber, or internet connectivity, you can work with the whole world. So you don't really need to move from rural areas. You can really be connected to the world. And that is something that it gives young people a new possibility really to have interested work, but still live in smaller villages. So this internet connectivity is very important. That is functioning in rural areas. Second, I think we thought about, well, you talked about, Eva talked about this, to create in early stage good childhood memories. That is something also I believe strongly in, because if you grown up in rural areas and you have a kind of strong and nice childhood memories, okay, you perhaps go away for studies, but then you can think of moving back. And I think to create this strong connectivity in early stage is really important. And I should say to create a kind of place of belonging. Because nowadays we also talk much about this rootless, that people don't really have connectivity to some. The world is getting more crazy. So to be a part of something, to be a part of a community and have be connected to rural areas can be really also safety for many young people today. And the third thing is, I should say that we need to create also youth startup hubs or something like that in rural areas, that there are nice places to work from, that you perhaps can work with different approaches, but you have a kind of social inclusiveness in these working places. So, and I went to Sweden some weeks ago in Jörn, and there was a kind of gamification startup villages. It was really interesting. So and outdoor, it looks really like a old-fashioned building, but inside it was really a creative atmosphere. So nothing is impossible anymore, I should say.
No, indeed, nothing is impossible, and it's about creativity, right? Like finding these ways of coming together and whatnot. Thank you so much for that. Just speaking a little bit about, just picking up on what you said, Hans-Peter, about having a voice but no vote. What are your experiences in this? You have been both working in youth councils or like have been working with politics in general. What are your thoughts, Mats?
Well, I think that that's one of the main reasons why we have youth councils. It's because when we're under 18, we have no right to vote, and we can also not. We can't be voted into the councils or be politicians. So that's why we need to have these councils to kind of represent youth in all sorts of politics, because a lot of politics revolves around taking choices for youth, obviously. So like especially in education. And to have politicians maybe 50, 60 years old to take choices about youth, that's kind of opposite. Not only do they not necessarily know or remember how it is to be young, and essentially they really don't know how to be young today. So that's kind of one of the main issues there at hand. So I feel like having young voices being represented is one of the main issues that Nordic areas in general can be better at and set an example for the rest of the world.
Are they good enough at like relating to you? Like as you said, I mean, everything was better before. How does that kind of factor into things?
Well, that's a lot of how people see it, because because many people who are, you have to be kind of established to be a politician. You have to have experience and to be voted in to councils. So then, of course, you have kind of this rose-tinted glasses, maybe some would say. And of course, not all politicians are like this, but it's a tendency we see a lot in, I think, a lot of politics, to try to have things be the same as they were before. But we live in a world where a lot of breakthroughs are made every single day, and society has come a long way just the last 10 years. So we need to be more on foot and constantly adapting to new changes.
Absolutely. And you work with community-led development. What does that look like? How do you see young people's place in that?
We have some projects that is for youth and try to change the urban norm and involve them in different policy processes. But I feel like a lot of the time everybody wants to listen to youth. They want to be a part of them. They want to be a part of different debates. But then we are not in a decision-making space, so it's no different. And we feel like we should be in the decision-making space, not only like youth washing, like people like to take picture of us and be like, oh, young people were here, but nothing happens.
I think that's such a good point, like this kind of youth washing thing, like basically these symbolic acts. I think that's really maybe a little bit of a problem sometimes. You're from quite a small community. Did you have a good childhood? Do you want to move back there? Like, is that everything that needs to be fixed?
Yeah, well, personally I want to, but I don't see a lot of people my age or the people that I grew up with wanting to do the same. I think that like one of the main, maybe a solution here is intergenerational dialogues and meeting together in something creative. I think that maybe often we lack the mutual respect and be able to meet on like an equal platform. In my hometown, there have been in the past really successful projects with the local theater community, where school children and adults doing this as a hobby for fun, putting up a play where everyone can shine, everyone can find something, whether it's acting, whether it's backstage, whether it's makeup, hair, building the stage. And everyone can learn from each other. And through this creative intergenerational work, we learn to appreciate each other and that we're not that different from each other. I think often we try to make these we need to make space for youth and we need to make places where youth can meet. I think that's very important, but I think we also need, because if the community is this small, like my hometown is around 300 people, we cannot just create spaces for young people. When I was a teenager there, we were around 10 young people. We don't need that big of a space. we need to be able to connect with the entire community, and that we need intergenerational activities and dialogues for.
And that's the cohesion that you were talking about as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a kind of like that, finding your superpower, especially when you're talking about the theatres and, finding what you're good at, I suppose, and then also being part of something bigger, which is really, really cool. Thank you. And you guys, are you good at involving young people in your work, Anne-Sophie?
What a question. I hope so. Of course, we have a lot of rural funding, if I say so you can also fund a lot of youth projects, and also we have, for example, Leader Youth projects ongoing in Finland, so from that approach you can really involve young people, and also they can create their own projects, what they really want. But I should say, you talked about this, to involve young people in the local areas. I realized that, of course, when I was 18, 19, I was really interested in the local politics. So, okay, I ran for the local assembly. I did not get, I was not elected the first time, but I get a position as a chairwoman of the local youth committee. So that was my starting point. So I really should say that we should motivate young people to try to be candidates in local elections, because that's one step. But then, of course, not everybody wants to go that. So that means also that we have to create more participatory democracy that fits especially for young people, and we really need new interesting models, I think, to find. Perhaps not the models that we have now is the best one, so we really have to try to create new participatory models, especially involving youth and young people, yes.
Exactly. And I mean, Lilja, you have direct experience with this. Like, how was it to be a young politician and getting into that, and also perhaps realizing that you cannot do everything?
So, yeah, I actually started in a youth council when I was 15, which is actually my first experience with politics. And that's, so I was quite happy to hear when they were talking about the importance of youth council, because I felt it myself, because I went on a meeting with the municipality at my town, or close. I live on a sheep farm close to my town, and I told them there, like, okay, in my school, there are 3 schools in my area. In the rural school, we have so few kids that we can't have any sports or anything after school. Everything is in the town, and it takes us a half an hour to go there. We need a bus or something after school, both to go to sports and to go back. And there I was 15, arguing with the politicians, and they were saying it costs a lot. And I said, yeah, but if it's not fun being here, then we don't want to be here. Then we just leave, and we do not want to have our kids here if there's nothing to offer them. And they started the bus, and it's still going 12 years later, and I have my kids now on the bus. So I absolutely love it. But it was a bit of a rush, seeing that if you decided just to start arguing, you could actually get forward with it. And that fight was the push for me to go into politics, because I heard, okay, if people actually listen to young people. I can actually do this quite early. I do not have to wait until I'm old, like most politicians are. I'm 30 years younger than most of the people in the parliament, which means I still count it as encouraging youth participation in politics when I decide to go to my job, because it's I do not like waking up early, but I decided to do this, and it's also sometimes quite hard because I live on my farm and it's 100 kilometers north from here. Because I want to raise my kids. I have 2 kids on my farm and I want them to participate in the community because I love being there. It's fun to be there and I see that they can have jobs there and I see that they can participate in their community. And you can see that you can have some change there. If you need to fix something in your community, you just need to have the voice. And then you can affect the vote that the people are having there. Because they, of course, want the votes of young people too. You just need to be loud. If you're not saying it, they won't fix it.
Well, exactly. And I mean, yeah, I see you're nodding. What does this look like in your organization? Do you involve young people across the borders in the Nordic countries?
The short answer would be no, but that's not quite accurate. We have been looking on Norway, of course, because I think they are setting a good example. And so we started a project between Sweden and Norway with the local municipalities and actually importing the youth council model and learn from the Norwegian Youth Council of Mosjøen. And then the upcoming weekend, we're actually organizing a sports camp for local sports clubs, both sides border, to start networking and maybe get a feel for that the local area is maybe a bit bigger than the local village, but it's still very local. And in this case as well, cross-border, which is really, really nice. So the short answer, no, but we're trying.
That's really good. And I mean, this is like the crux of Nordic cooperation, isn't it? Like making these connections across borders so we know each other and know what each other's all about. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to also to say that we have also in Finland these youth councils. So this is something that we have also had for quite a long time. But I think we have to create it to the next level. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We shouldn't be stagnant about these things. Just because something has worked for the past 50 years doesn't mean that we can't improve things. We're going to focus down a little bit and focus on the themes here, like labor market, education, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to invite some of you from the audience as well to perhaps, if you have any questions or want to answer, you are welcome to join us. First question is, why are we centralizing smaller rural schools? What do you think that is? Are you raising your hand? Yeah, go for it. Yes, be clear, yeah.
Normally, local politicians have a limited budget. That's the first answer. But even if we should allow more resources and allocate more resources to local rural schools, I'm not sure all schools should still be open, because when they get too small, they are socially harmful for the children. There's a lot of research on that. So when you showed your presentation earlier today, I reacted, well, how big was the closed school when it was still alive and kicking? Were there 6 children where 1 were bullied? Or were there like 16 where everybody had at least 1 friend? You need to be careful. Not all schools should be open. Most of them should.
I think that's really important. Yes, Ann-Sofie.
Yes, I have a concrete example from, I started, as I said, in the youth committee, but then I ended up to be the chairwoman of the local assembly some years later. And then we have in my smaller municipality, we had at that time 4 schools. And then we had this discussion. And I have to say, to be a local politics at that time, that was the worst case that we really discuss. Should we shut down a school or not? So it is not an easy discussion. But once a mother phoned me and she was crying and she said, I can't really say this in my smaller villages because I have a daughter in this small school, but she's alone at her class, and I really want for my girl to have some friends. But I can't say it back home in the villages because they are struggling to keep the village school. So it's not so easy. Then you have some personal, of course, emotions if you are a mother or father or have a child in that school. But of course, then you have the community, because the community, the village, want to keep the school because it's it's a node for many things in that village. So it's really complicated to have this discussion, and it's the worst thing when you are a local politician to have this discussion. I can really admit that. I'm not a local politician anymore, but this is something that really reminds me of these times.
No, it's a super sensitive topic. I too have experience with this from where I'm from as well, and this is really something that divides people. Yes, and I see, Lilia, you have a point to make.
Yeah, no, I just really agree what they said here. It's, of course, some schools, you can't have them open because of the reasons that we just went through here. But some local communities have just spoken to their parents and had meetings and said, okay, if it goes below 10, 5, 7, do you want to decide this number with us because of these reasons? If not, you can go home and try to make more kids for the schools. But they just need to do this with the community because everyone knows it can be really hard for your kids to be part of a really small school, but it's also really hard to be maybe one of the last parents to have kids in the school, and you don't want to be the one that says, maybe this is over. But it's different between communities what the number is. Some think it should be 30, some think it should be 50, some think it should be 5. So this is a talk that everyone needs to do with the parents and with the students, especially the students, because they need to have the voice in this, because it's their school. And quite often, maybe the parents don't want to close the school, but the kids want, or the other way around. So you need to focus on and give them a voice in this, because hopefully they will be the ones that come back with kids in the school, or not, because then they know that they were part of the decision-making if they close the school.
Well, so quite personal experience here. I come from this village of 300 people, but we are actually originally from the smaller village, close to that village, which is only 70 people. And when we moved there, my older sister was coming into 7th, 8th, 9th grade. My mom wanted to move her to the bigger village where we live now, because there were only a few people. And in this age, it's very important to have at least some kids your age. And the municipality did not want that. So we moved from that small village to the little bit bigger village. But if there's, maybe we allow for more flexibility. Funny story, my mother is now the headmaster of that small village. And now they are cooperating with the bigger town school to have like a couple of days a week. They go to the bigger town, and a couple of days a week they stay in their hometown. So I think we need to have more flexibility. And I also remember, even in the bigger town, when I was that age, I did not, even though it was around 12 people, kids my age, I did not fit in with any of them. And all of my friends were on my phone, most of them living in India, that I met through chat platforms online. And that was great for me, because I didn't fit in with the other ones, but people were really worried about me. People were really worried about me. And I just think of that when you said that, like, you know, we have the whole world in our palm. And yes, it was great for me, but I also could not wait to move here to Reykjavik to go to high school and be able to choose my own friends. And they were not just these same 10 people that I had nothing in common with except living in this town. So I think we need to have more flexibility, use the internet, but of course we need to be careful about it. But yeah.
And I think we need to move on to the next topic, just a bit on labour market. We were talking a bit earlier, and this is something that Eva was saying, and it's also a scholar who said this. Are we learning to leave? And is education then a ticket out of these situations? Is it? Are we learning to leave? Are you learning to leave?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think like it's a norm that my friends who stays have like, they can't move on with their lives, and we who moved away are on another level, or what to say. But you learn when you live, and I feel like they are great, and we are great as well, so we just choose different parts.
Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of people have to make that move already in upper secondary school, having to choose the line of education they want. I sit on the board of education for my regional municipality, and every year we have to choose which classes to initialize. Of course, with a limited pool of money, and we have to prioritize based on number of applicants, and that is very difficult to prioritize and ties into the previous points as well. Should we have small classes in a wealth of different educational programs and different small schools so that people don't have to move as far to kind of study what they want to study? Or should we make it so that most people on larger schools get their first choice? And that is a very difficult decision, and one kind of leads to having less people get their first choice, while at the same time having more people living closer to the schools, having the line that they want to study where they actually live. So it's a very difficult thing to prioritize, and a very like direct thing you have to actually consider.
Are we good with making the labour markets relevant enough? I see you have been wanting to say something.
Well, maybe. I think we got the answer just before this question, actually, because we need more flexibility. We know that in Sweden, for instance, we have a total horrible lack of people with vocational training. Everybody wants to go to university now, and vocational training is not very popular. But it's needed. If you cannot do it where you live, could we? I mean, courage is actually a muscle you need to nourish and train. And when you're as old as I am, you tend to lose muscle, you know. So we need to train our courage, and we need to try new things in order to actually be able to cater to the needs of the young people, as well as businesses and community services and whatever needs all the labor. And I cannot see we're doing that, actually. We need, as we say in Sweden in the grade system, we get an F on that.
Yes, I can agree with this vocational training, and I think that you should put more. Perhaps you should involve more entrepreneurial aspects also in this vocational training. That you really, because you go for vocational training, but if I had understood right, there is not so much of these entrepreneurial aspects. So that then you come out, but you are not really an entrepreneur. But if you move back to rural areas, you need to be an entrepreneur because you have to run your own businesses. So I think that you should really, you have to, yeah, as I said, you have to put more entrepreneurial aspects in this vocational trade, perhaps then, so you will create more entrepreneurs for rural areas directly.
Exactly, and I suppose that's a way to make it exciting to stay as well, because it seems now, especially when we look at what Sophia was saying in the video about how it feels like it's a failure to stay behind, essentially, quite literally and figuratively. Is it a failure to stay in rural areas these days? Like, I look at you guys.
I mean, many people would probably say so, but I think that's more of the, as we talked about earlier, like what we're told, because if everyone believes that is true, then it will be true. That's kind of the fact of the matter. So if everyone is told that if you need to be successful, you have to move, then everyone who wants to be successful has to move. That's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think.
And I think it's important to show the different opportunities that there are in rural areas. And now that we have a lot of digital learning and stuff like that, I feel like it can change a lot. Because when I went to school, I didn't know which like local businesses that needed staff. We didn't talk to each other or had some collaboration. And one of the things that we talked about was practical work-life orientation. and it should be involved in the rural areas, so you can get your eyes open and see what business is in the rural areas and what you can do.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of opportunities, especially for young people in rural areas, because we are less people, so there is less competition. But it's also like, you know, if you are between the age of 15 and 18 within my village, that essentially means that you're a high school dropout. So, you know, that is not really the brand for being a successful person. But right now, I am working in my municipality office as like a service representative. That is not a job that I could have gotten if I was in the capital region. That is like the only way that I could have gotten that job is because this is a rural place. And so there are great opportunities in rural regions, but it's this gap between being a high school dropout and getting these very nice jobs that we need to bridge.
Yeah. And I mean, we could have spoken about housing and transport as well. Like, there's so many good things that have been brought up by the GenZ panelists in the movie. But we don't have time for that, because I really want to involve you guys. First of all, if anybody had any questions for our panelists today at all? Yes, I see. Eva has one.
Thank you. How would the perfect flexible education look for you in the GenZ panelist?
Perfect flexible education. Well, as was said here earlier, that there is no one solution fits all. I think that this is just something that needs to really be in like a discussion with adults and like with parents and kids and the people in the place. But I think there's a lot of like opportunities with remote, with digital learning and in-place learning and people traveling between regions as well. That's how it used to be back in the days here in Iceland as well. There's teachers traveling around.
Thank you so much. We are running low on time, and I would really love your input on this. We will be discussing this more in depth in the workshop at 3 o'clock today, so please stick around for that. Especially if you want to engage with the young kids here. Not young, I mean like you're nearly in your 20s. I mean, you're not babies. Sorry. But in one word, how would you think, or what would you say? What is that GenZ people need in order to stay in Nordic rural areas? So please get out your phones, fill this in, and while this is happening, I think we can bring Snorri on stage. Oh, sorry, and thank you so much for joining us today. A big round of applause as well for the group here. Yes. And as I said, the word cloud is what we're going to use in the workshop. Cool.
The result is coming now, right? Yeah. Yes, the results are coming in. Shortly after you have written your idea, then we're going to have a break. It should start again in 12:45. We're getting a lot of responses here. Move to urban areas, political power, ask the youths. Yes. At the end, we'll have a magnificent mind map of one true answer in this, well, or various true answers. Very important ideas, yes. Well, as I said, 12:45, we're starting again, diving into more the green transition and the youth aspect of it all, with some short talks and a panel. But for now, we can slowly head up to lunch and keep admiring this map, which we will just keep on here. And if you've already put it in, then I guess you're free to go. Great, thank you guys for now, and we'll see you after lunch.